Cicero, the great lawyer and orator, he said that gratitude is not only the greatest of all virtues, but it's the parent of all the others. You're not likely to see those other virtues reflected in anybody who doesn't live a life of gratitude. And there are three things that erode or destroy gratitude: pride, complaining, as well as carelessness. A good example of pride, I don't know of your history, but in 1923 in Japan, there was a devastating earthquake, covered 45,000 square miles. It hit 5 big cities, affected a population of 7 million people. 3/4 of Tokyo was burned, and the entire city, with its 5 million inhabitants, was completely shattered. There were almost 300,000 people dead, 2.5 million people homeless. Diseases, despair rode throughout the entire island empire. And then help came from principally America: food, clothing, medical supplies. Volunteer workers came by the hundreds and the thousands on ships. American Red Cross collected $10 million from people of the United States. The Emperor of Japan, in 1923, made an official declaration which said that the people of Japan will always be deeply and heartfeltly grateful to the people of America. We will never forget what you've done. 1923. Anyone want to do the math? 18 years. Pearl Harbor, 1941. Pride can destroy gratitude. Here's another story where an advertising firm dressed someone up as a blind man and gave him a cup to collect money from Central Park. One day he put a sign on his neck that said, "I'm blind." The whole day he was out, he collected about $4. Next day they dressed him up the same way. They placed him in the same place, but they changed the sign to read, "It's spring and I'm blind." That day he collected $70. That day those people realized how lucky they were to have sight and to be able to see what that man purportedly couldn't see: the flower, the rain, the beautiful sunrise and sunset. Abraham Lincoln declared that the last Thursday every November would be a day of Thanksgiving. And it's important to note that our forefathers weren't so much thankful for things as they were thankful in everything. In bounty, they were thankful, but they were also thankful in lack. In feast, they were thankful, but they were also thankful in famine. They were thankful in joy, but they were also thankful in misery. I'm here today to tell you there's a big difference between being thankful for things and being thankful in all things. Thanksgiving is not based on what we have, which is changeable, coming and going. Sometimes here, sometimes not. Thanksgiving should be based on our relationship with God, which is immutable, eternal, and unchangeable. If we lose the things that we have, we're not going to lose our sense of thanksgiving. We're not going to lose our gratitude. We're going to be thankful in all things. Prabhupada told the story, Punar Bhushika Mava. There was a sage one time. He was deep in meditation. There was a little pulling on his apparel. He looked down, there was a mouse there. The sage said, "What is it that's so important to you that you're disturbing my meditation?" The mouse said, "Cats. Can you do something about cats chasing me?" The sage has built up a lot of mystic power by his austerity, so he said, "Okay, become a cat." A couple of weeks later, pulling again, looked down, there was a cat. He said, "Now what?" He said, "Dogs. Dogs are giving me a hard time." "All right, become a dog." A couple of weeks later, his meditation was again broken by a little pulling on his cloth. Looked, dog was there. I said, "Now what?" They're tigers. So he said, "All right, become a tiger." So this time, instead of going away, the tiger was looking very intently at the sage. His whiskers were twitching, kind of licking his lips. The sage says, "So, you want to eat me?" The tiger said, "Yes." Then the sage says, "Again, become a mouse." We have these symbols, these national symbols. Liken ourselves to eagles. The British, for many years, they had the British lion. They said the sun never set on the British Empire. Now the sun never rises on the British Empire. Again, become a mouse. Pride, carelessness, these things erode gratitude. If you're an employer, here's a good rule of thumb. You will have to point out what your employees are doing wrong. You will have to criticize them. But if you want a happy workplace, here's the rule of thumb. For every time you point out something they could be doing better, praise them 3 times. For every one time that you point out a mistake, tell them 3 times something they're doing well. You'll have a very, very appreciative, happy workforce. Now, here's some questions that we should ask ourselves. What if God met our needs to the same extent that we gave Him our lives? What if we never saw another flower bloom because we grumbled when God sent the rain? What if God stopped loving and caring for us because we failed to have love and care for Him and His children? What if God took away His message and His promise for eternal life because we wouldn't listen to His messenger? What if He wouldn't bless us today because we didn't glorify Him or think about Him yesterday? What if God answered our prayers the way we answer His call for service? What if God decided to stop leading us tomorrow because we didn't follow Him today? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Ram. All I can say is thank God that He's God. He's not like us. Benjamin Franklin, the key to happiness. He says all happy people are grateful, and ungrateful people cannot be happy. We tend to think that it's being unhappy that leads people to complain, but it's truer to say that it's complaining that leads to people becoming unhappy. Become grateful, and you'll become a much happier person. Does God need our gratitude? No. We're going to do an arti ceremony in a few minutes where we offer incense, we offer flame, we offer flour, we offer water. We offer these to God. What does God need to do with the flame? He creates the sun. Why does He need a little water? He creates the Mississippi, the Yangtze, the Danube, the Ganges, the Yamuna. He doesn't need our offerings, but we need to offer to Him, to express our gratitude. After all, constitutionally, we're not the supreme. We're not the whole, we're the parts. And what's the relationship of the part to the whole? The part serves the whole. The finger has no means to be independent, live independent from the body. A finger that's severed, lying on the ground, everyone just kicks it away, it's useless. But a finger that's attached to the body could be insured for $2-3 million if it was the finger of a violinist or a cellist or an athlete. It's in our service to the whole that we find meaning. God doesn't need our gratitude, but we need to learn to be grateful because there is so much that we're dependent on God for: air, water. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that never was there a time when you did not exist, nor me, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. That's something to be grateful for, that God created you eternal. Would you say that should be on the list of things to be grateful for? That we existed before this body and will continue to exist after this body? You're not the body you're living in, your eternal spirit soul. So where shall I begin? Every living entity, including you, is immortal. It's the inner self which is true, the outer body, misty like morning dew, musty and crusty after youth passes earth to earth, dust to dust, ash to ashes. Every 7 years, each cell is replaced. The old body's erased, displaced, effaced. Every cell is always changing. You're reincarnating. The question remains, who are you and what are you going to do about material contamination? You can ignore the concept and hit the exit by the nearest route, or you can stay and listen to our lyrics and get a vision of the truth. Does your life have meaning? You're just trying to escape. You're just breathing and taking up space. Most people are not open. They don't want to know. The question I propose from me to you is, you have the eyes to see. Soul is unborn, it never grows old. You can tell by the way they cry, trying to conform to a limited life. Death is so painful because we're not supposed to die. The soul is eternal, we know it inside, like, why should I change my body again? That's the meaning of human sense. If I'm eternal, why all the external posturing and pretense? My time would be better spent overcoming rebirth and rising high into the spiritual sky. The human form is a unique opportunity to overcome the cycle of rebirth which no one survives. Time to realize your eternal state and attain the spiritual world one day. We have free will to make our own decisions, but we have to face the reactions to the way we've been living. Sense enjoyment is fleeting and shabby. We do it over and over, but it never makes us happy. Not knowing our true nature, we cater to all this temporary stuff, but it's never enough. We cage ourselves in this prison and numb our conscience, this crummy position. We allow the media to condition us to shop for addition to this body, which we are not. Ignorance causes dissatisfaction of the soul. We can't imagine why we're not happy. Then we grow and get crabby and go cold. It's hard to turn back once the soul's been sold. If you don't know why you're here, to be honest, you don't. You might find out if you considered the soul. Fanny Crosby is a good example of gratitude. She wrote 8,000 songs and hymns, including several that are sung to this very day. In fact, she wrote so many songs that in order to get them published, she had to write dozens and dozens under pseudonyms. Now, Fanny Crosby, at 6 weeks of age, she was born perfectly normal and whole, with good eyesight. She had a little pink eye. How many kids have pink eye? I know I had multiple times when I was a kid. Very, very common thing. It's just a minor eye inflammation. Her mother took her to the local doctor for treatment. The doctor used the wrong medicine on her eyes and made her totally blind because of his carelessness. Years later, she was asked whether she harbored any resentment against that physician. Here's what she said. If I could meet him now, I would thank him with all my heart, over and over and over again, for making me blind. Why? She felt that that blindness was a gift from God to help her write the hymns that flowed from her pen. Thank you. How many of you use that word today? Thank you. Good for you. Those are the two most precious words in the English language. Someone does something for you, thank you. Never be stingy with your thank yous. Rudyard Kipling was, during his lifetime, one of the best paid authors. There were many authors that earned a lot of money, but it was their estate that earned the money after they passed away. Rudyard Kipling was the first author that was actually paid handsomely in his lifetime for his poems and stories. A smart aleck reporter once came up to him, pulled $100 out of his pocket, kind of held it back, and he said, I've crunched the numbers and I figured that you've earned $50 for every word that you've written that's been published. He says, I've got $100 here. Can you give me the two most valuable words? Rudyard Kipling snatched the money pocket and he said, thank you. Two most valuable words in the English language. We came to Utah Valley in 1981, area 90% another religion. We had no money, there were no devotees here. Even the Indian community, which are our natural allies, there were none in Utah Valley, and there were very, very few in Salt Lake City. Somehow or other, by God's grace, from a wing and a prayer, we opened this beautiful temple. In 2001, June 23rd, Senator Orrin Hatch came from Washington. Dr. Dinesh Patel was here. Gary Herbert, future governor, who at that time was a Utah County Commissioner, was one of our speakers. And about 5,000 friends and well-wishers and neighbors came by. I'll never forget that day. I just spent the whole day, whether they'd given a donation or whether they volunteered some work or whether they just wished us well, because somebody comes into your area where you're the predominant religion and they want to start a temple, not everybody would be gracious and welcoming. Good wishes were important, as well as tangible financial contributions and volunteer service. So I just remember that day, everybody I saw, I said, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. It was not our work. It was God's grace expressed through friends and neighbors and well-wishers. And basically we built this temple because we were able to say the two most important words in the English language, not just at the opening, but many, many thousands of times as well, building up to the opening. Finishing up here, I'll tell you a story about a missionary. He went to a jungle area in Borneo. They'd never even seen white men before. The peculiarity of this village, where he had his mission, was that around the age of 30, every generation of the natives had gone blind, lost their sight. Nobody knew whether it was genetic or environmental, but it happened. Every generation, great-grandfathers, grandfathers, fathers. He had had some medical training, a little of herbology, and he spent his spare time making various potions and picking leaves and plants and herbs and mixing them together and experimenting with some of the younger kids. The time went on. Kids over 15 became 20, and they became 25 and 27 and 28 and 29 and 30 and 31 and 32. And they still had their sight. It's the first generation that had sidestepped this curse since before they could remember. The thing is, not one member of the tribe said thank you to that missionary. It wasn't because they weren't grateful. There was no such word in their language. Instead, they said a word or two to him that meant, I will tell your name. I will tell your name. I will tell your story. Wherever they went, upriver, see other tribes, downriver to trading posts, they would tell them the name of that missionary who had cured their blindness. They had received something so precious, so wonderful, so unprecedented, that they showed their gratitude by proclaiming it to everyone they met. That's a story I tell you to show you why we chant over and over and over and over and over and over again, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. The psalmist, David from the Bible, he said, you come to a point where you realize that God has been so good to you that you can no longer keep it inside anymore. From the depths of your being, you shout out your joy of thanks to the Lord. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Quoting again from Psalms, oh, give thanks to the Lord. Give thanks to the Lord, call upon his name, make known his deeds among the people. Sing songs unto him, talk ye of his wondrous ways. Glory in his holy name. Let the heart of them rejoice that seek the Lord. Seek the Lord in his strength. Seek his face evermore. David was a shepherd boy, and to while away the time, he would compose songs to God. He would sing out there in the fields, and he would play the flute, he would play the lute and the lyre. Later on, he was personally chosen by God to be the king of the Israelites. It said that David was a man after God's own heart. Why is David's name mentioned 6 times more often in the Bible than Abraham, Isaac? Because he loved to sing the glories, the names of the Lord. And it says that when he took area that has been Jerusalem, it's described that at any given time, this is like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, there were no less than 300 men, women, paid on retainer, going through the streets singing the glories of God. That would have been 300 people at like 2 in the morning, probably at 2 in the afternoon. It might have been 3,000 people. And David never got defeated. He went from glory to glory to glory to glory to glory. And it said that when the chanters would go through the city, God would express his pleasure by appearing amongst them like a membrane. Their hairs would stand on end. They would get goosebumps all over. And God would express his delight and satisfaction. After all, it says, wherever 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am. Speaking of gathering in the name of God, we've had the Festival of Colors. It's coming up in about 3 months' time. We're already submitting the application. Our scheme in conceiving and organizing and managing and hosting the festival for the last 30 years has simply to get people to come on the property and chant the names of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And we haven't been sectarian either. For 3 straight years, I invited Mikey Polly, who's Jewish, Orthodox Jew, and he has a band. He would chant the Hebrew names of God. Here's a wonderful quote from our founder and spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada. In the ordinary way, if somebody gives you a glass of water, you say thank you, isn't it? And God has given us so vast mass of water in the ocean, the sea, the sky. You can't live without water. It's the most essential element. God has given us an abundance of water along with an abundance of light coming from the sun, the moon, and the stars. And yet we take it for granted, generally speaking. We don't live our life in thanksgiving. Rather than being thankful to the living God who provides water and sunlight and the life within our breasts, we say, God is dead. And God, for his part, he doesn't expect much for all that he does for us. Only that we appreciate him. Only that we express simple appreciation. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Prabhupada went on to say, the truly devoted and spiritually mature persons do not thank the Lord only one day a year. They give their prayer of thanks every day and every waking moment, showing gratitude to the Lord by offering him loving devotional service eternally. Almost at the very end of the Bhagavad Gita, the Song of God, Krishna says to us, all that you do, all that you eat, all that you offer and give away, as well as all austerities that you may perform, should be done as an offering to me. If we'll get in the habit of rising up every glorious morning with a song of thanksgiving in our hearts, counting on God to deal with us more graciously than we deal with him, to give us millions and millions of times more than we could ever give to him, then the result will be, for that simple appreciation, that God will open the vaults of heaven and shower upon us the full fruits of love, peace, joy that he has in store for us. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. If you're feeling a little bit grateful and like you want to spill it out over, please join me. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.